Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope the stream is live now. So, continuing the session which we had on Monday and Tuesday. Following that, we have day three of the web development session today. It would be starting in a couple of minutes. We have the speaker, Mr. Kuldeep Pisda, and I would like to invite him to proceed with the session.
Hey guys, am I audible? I hope I'm audible. If I'm not, then yeah, let me know in the chat. I think that will be feasible. Okay. So since till now we have looked on what is HTML. We looked a very little on what is CSS, and yesterday we deep dive into JavaScript. We did some couple of cool things with JavaScript. We tried to do something unusual, and we also looked upon the ES5 and the new features of ES6. And continuing to that, today we will look upon the React. Okay, what is React, and we'll go over it. So today I have not made any presentation deliberately because what I have felt is when we do such sessions, right, we already have things with us, and often the newbies, they start with something, and they run into some problems, and then they are like basically lagging behind in the whole session. So I will be showing you exactly how you can follow the steps and you can get started with React. And yeah, we'll do mostly hands-on today. We will look on some of the aspects of React, how it works, and yeah, basics of React. And we'll try to build something as well. Like we will try to probably build some very simple applications, and I think that will be good to get started with React. Okay, yeah. So React is a JavaScript library that we use for that we use basically for building the front end. So if you remember yesterday, we were doing some manipulation with the HTML page. Like we tried changing the heading of the page just with an input, and likewise we also saw one of the cool and quick example of switching the lights on and off as well, right? So those were like very basic examples, like literally very basic examples. And just consider that do a little two of the things. And if you see, let's say, the Facebook website and a very cool dashboard that you have. Maybe let's talk about the GCP or AWS console or Azure DevOps console and stuff like that. So those dashboards are very heavy, and there are a lot of things that are running behind them. So when we talk about building those kind of dashboards, so we can't do something like that. We will be reloading the web page every time whenever we have some state change. But what do I mean by state change? Like for example, we have a live dash. Let's say we are an e-commerce company, and in the dashboard, what we want to do is we want to show the live feed of on the users that we have, or probably or maybe more deliberate or more precise example will be, let's say we own one cafe and we are enrolled with Zomato or Swiggy. So Zomato and Swiggy, what they give us, they give us a dashboard in which we can see the orders, and which we can either choose to accept or deny, and then the whole process goes on, right? So if we have the dashboard, and let's say we have we have some updated data in the dashboard, like some order has been placed, right? Then the front end does not know that the new data has been entered in the backend, right? It does not know by default. We have to make it know by maybe polling or some sort of communication and other things. That is another topic, but I'm talking about very general case, right? So what is a simple thing that probably we will do is we will just try to refresh the web. We will just try to refresh the web page, and it makes sense, right? Like we'll refresh the page and the data will be updated. But it does not make sense when we have a lot of traffic, when we have a lot of things going on, because we cannot keep refreshing on the page and expecting that we don't miss any of the new updates in the dashboard. And it is not very good user experience as well. So this is where this is a place where this libraries, this new libraries and frameworks comes in JavaScript that help us build those things. So for example, last day when we saw our example, what we were doing was like, we were calling a function, and then we were trying to we were trying to update the JavaScript elements of the DOM, and we were trying to update it manually, like by writing queries like document.getElement by ID, and passing the ID, and then according to what kind of tag it is, we were trying to fetch the value from the we were trying to either fetch the value from the input field, and we were trying to put it there somewhere else. And likewise, in case of the bulb example, right, we were directly like changing the image as well, image of the source, and like we were trying to manipulate it like that. So we need some, like, we need some help here, like which can, like, which can help us build this kind of very powerful dashboards by some, like, by some very, by in a very in a very defined way, not like that every time we do every time we need to update one thing, I'll have to go in the ID of the element, and then I'll have to update it, right? There has to be some better way. Like for example, let's consider an example. What if we can have one variable, like, with which we can define whenever that is specific input field is updated, we update the variable, and whenever that variable is updated, we automatically update that a very value in the defined place where it should be updated. And yeah, this is what we are gonna do today in a way. Right from installing these things and working on it. So React is not the only framework that does it. We have a couple of frameworks or libraries, JavaScript libraries that does it. Some notable ones are React, Angular, and Vue.js. Those are very popular one. Apart from it, we have different versions of React. Not exactly versions, but like builder of Reacts. They are like, Gatsby. They are like Gatsby, Gatsby or Gatsby.js, and then we have Next.js and other libraries that basically work on React itself, but they are kind of like, generator for React. So at the end, under the hood, React is working, but they are like organizing in their own way of, like, writing components and stuff. So yeah, today we are gonna check it. Let me just fetch the replica to share the screen. Okay. I think you guys are able to see the screen. Yeah. So if you are learning anything, be it React, Angular, or Vue, or any of the, like, any of the frameworks or any of the libraries, the best way to learn them is by following the documentation. So that is what we are gonna do today as well, right? So I am not sure if I have installed React, I have installed Node React, but if that is the case, then we will install that too. Okay. So let's go into the docs, and let's search for example where it says install. Okay, I think so. Installation is here itself, getting started. Listen, okay, yeah. Okay, so React has several ways of actually, like, building, including React in our applications. One of the ways, for example, if you have worked with JavaScript, we were saying, right, we can include JavaScript. We can write JavaScript in several ways. One way was to put the script directly in the header. One was putting it in the body, and the other was just passing the script, but just passing the reference, the URL of the JavaScript file in the script source and using it. So likewise, we can also get started using React that way. Like, we can just use the JS file of React and include it in our application, and then we can work with it. But today, that is not our end goal. We will be actually working with the full-fledged React. That is, we are not looking for one example where we would like to add React to our existing website. That this example says that you can add React to an HTML page in 1 minute, and this is what we're talking about. We just need to include the JS file, and it basically works. Okay, so but we are not looking for that right now. What we are looking for in this session will be to create a new React app from scratch, and then we'll be looking into. Okay, so let's jump into it. Create a new React app. So uh, they if you read this thing, I'm not going to read it because I think you can read it. Let's jump directly into the action. We need to run this script, and this will do it. Let's understand like what this thing is. So npx is one of the tool that node already has that we need to install with that gets installed. I think when we install node, the command is create react app, and then this is the name of the app that we are gonna create, right? So yeah, but let's try to go through it one by one. So you might node name blah 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 recommended tool change. So oh, yeah, so as I was talking about, create React app is one way. The other methods are next.js and getsb.js. So these two are again under the hood running they are under the hood running itself, running the React itself, but they are sort of a generator of like how you should define that specific React project and stuff like that. So but we are not going to look over them today. But just but be assured that if you can work with this CRA thing, the fundamentals and other things are definitely the same. Just that they differ in a way in a way or other. There are minor differences, but yeah, let's go with the simplest option that we have. That is the create React app. Okay, so it says that we need to run this command. Let's open the terminal. If I think in your system also you might be having one terminal, and you have to use this one if you don't have. I think if you're using Windows or Linux, you will have in Windows. You might have PowerShell in Linux. You might be having terminal or something like that, right? So let's go on projects because I want to build my projects over there. I think I had created one folder that is iTalk, and then let me make a new directory, and that is for React. Let's go inside it, and yeah, these steps are all like not necessary. I just want to keep my projects in a specific place so that when I want to remember them, it will be easy for me to like just check it and like pick it up from where I left it. But yeah, you can do it anywhere. So I will just copy this. Okay. I copied the wrong thing. The command is this. Let's copy this and let's paste it. And I want to make it, let's say, hello world. Okay, and now let's run this. So it says that need to install the following packages. So this will only run when you have Node installed in your system, and I think you can install your Node if you simply Google how to install Node in your respective operating system, be it Windows or Mac or Linux and stuff, and then you can install the Node first. And it suggests that we should have Node version that should be greater than 14, and the npm version that should be greater than or equal to 5.6, which we should already have. And you can click on the link over here, and like you can download the version as per your operating system. The current LTS version is the 61 and the 17 one is STS version, so probably you might want to go with the LTS one. So a quick difference about this thing, LTS versions are like long term support version. So STS versions are like usually in most of the software companies, like be it Ubuntu or like any other Linux, or any other like operating system manufacturer that builds on top of Linux kernel. They have this philosophy of like following this thing that all the even number in even on the even year they release LTS version on LTS, and on the odd years they release the STS version. Even year is in like this is 2022, right? So this is an even number. 2022 is an even number. So in this year they will release an LTS version. In the odd years they will release the STS version. So STS versions are like mostly the experimental ones, as in like they might be working on some new features. They want to introduce something new, and probably they will be tweaking with it. And if it works good, then they will like release those features as a mainline feature in the new LTS version. So if you are a developer and if you don't want to like mess with the bugginess and stuff that usually are in the STS version, you might want to go with the LTS version. In any case, be it Node or be it operating systems like Ubuntu, Fedora, or any such things, right? So just quick info. Apart, this is not related to React, but one thing that we, as a developer, we should know about the LTS and STS, right? So yeah, I already have the Node version with me. I think I had installed sometimes back, so I have it. So even if you want, if you want to know, you can. For example, in my case, I will just click this and it will just download this package, and boom, I will click on run it, and it will install node in my case. For your operating system, you will get different instructions, and based on that you have to follow on. In Windows also, there might be probably some binary that you will have to run. In case of Linux, probably there might be some commands that you would want to run on your terminal, and that will install the node. But today, assuming you have already passed that step, the next step that you have to do is you have to run this command. Npx is one command that is installed by default in the new version, so you don't have to worry about it. You just run this command and it will work. So, for example, we even have not installed this create react app as it is saying, right? Need to install the following packages first. And if I say yes, then it will install that first, and then it will make a new package. So I think it is installing the. Okay, so it installed it, and now it is creating a new React tab in this folder, which I just passed. Hello, what is the name of the project instead of the my app? And yeah, you're absolutely free to choose anything that you want, and there are no such limitation of where you want to put it or stuff like that. Okay, so let's let it finish, and then we shall resume again. It should be quick. I had invested good in the internet, so I think it should not should work like it's so. But okay, I think something went, some fluctuation was there. Let me see if it is from somewhere I don't know. Uh, okay, I don't know, but I think there are some lags which I too am feeling. Let me see and check if I can probably make them faster. Is there anything that is running inside it? Mm, okay. Mm, not sure what is blocking it, but okay, let's keep going. So this step usually takes time. Like for the first time when we are trying to install when we trying to create a React app. So do not panic. Assume that it is working under hood. It is working under the hood, and it will get completed depending on the speed of your internet. If it is very good, then it will work fast. If it is not very good, if it is fluctuating, then it might take more time, and sometimes it might take half an hour as well. If your internet is really slow, or it is having very good latency. So yeah, be prepared for it. For the first time, it obviously takes time. For the second times, they have the cache already with them, so it works like a charm. But yeah, for the first time we'll have to do, and I'm also doing it for the first time. So if we encounter something, then we'll have to we'll have to fix it as well. But as of now, we are not getting any issue. So yeah, I think we are good to go. Okay, so it has created. I think let's wait for a few more minutes. Okay, yeah. So I think we're done finally in installing the template. Okay, it is installing it. Okay, yeah. So we have React app installed in our system. What we have to do is we have to go inside the hello world folder that this tool created, and again you can open that folder in any of the you can open that folder in any of the terminal, any of the code editor that you would want, or you can use some IDs as well. But I think VS Code is usually very light and it works like a beautiful thing. So I'm going to use that as well. But you're free to choose your own favorite terminals. So what you do when you want to open that folder in VS Code, you just type code and space and dot. This If I put dot here, then it will open this current folder that I'm inside. If I instead of dot, if I pass name of some of the folder, then it will open that specific folder and not the directory. So it will work in, I think, Linux as well. For Windows, I'm not quite sure if if it is supported in the PowerShell, but yeah, this should work. So it has opened here. And okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, so we have our simple first React project with us that we just created with the React Reactor, and yeah, we're trying to run it. So if you see in the terminal, it said like you have to go inside the folder and you have to run this command npm start, and that is what we are going to do. So you can run this command here npm start, and it will start the React server. And this is the basic. This is the one of the first few things that we always do, right, when we install something, and then we do it. So Siddharth is saying yes. Hi Siddharth, if you have any doubt, you can please feel free to put over here. And okay, yeah. So this is something that happens that happens in usually in Mac. It does not happen. You won't see this thing in I think in Linux or Windows, but yeah, we have to do this thing here. So again, this first it will always take a bit time. It will take a bit time, but let's see. So till the time it is starting, let's try to see what are there inside the project. So if you see there are three folders, that it will be the same case in, yeah, in your project as well. Like you will have this. Okay, give me a minute. Yeah, so you will have this three folders itself. One will be the SRC, one will be the public one, and one will be the node modules. Okay, so how basically this any of the node project works is whenever we have a package or JSON file that that basically has details of all the npm or node packages that we would be using inside our project. And what it does, it basically keeps the local downloaded version of them inside this node underscore modules. So if I try to see the size of this folder, it will be very very huge. And there are there were some memes about it as well, that node modules is the heaviest object on the entire universe and multi stuff like that. So yeah, so the thing is that all the packages that we have specified here, like in the dependencies thing, they all gets installed locally as well. So this node underscore modules folder actually has a local copy of all of them. So if I see, let's say if I see the React one, you will find this React one here as well. Like there might be one folder of React and MNOPQREACT. So if you see, there is a folder, right? There's a folder. The exact JavaScript, the exact React package is this, and along with this, like there are several other packages that are installed over there. So for example, if I use React, if I install React, right, there might be some dependencies inside the React as well. And if you see, all these things will be actually installed. So yeah, it looks like it uses these two dependencies, and you will find that these two dependencies will always be will also be here, right? So that is how all the interdependencies thing that is there in the any of the module, they install it all in that folder. So in the first it takes time, but yeah, I think it is actually running on our system. So what you need to do is you need to just open this endpoint and you're good to go. So localhost 3000, so let's open it. Let's close this and let's open this thing. Localhost and 3000. and you will see beautiful first React server, right? So this is what this is the React server that we are running, right? So and the good thing about this is like unlike when we work with normal development, like whenever we save something, save some program, we have to manually stop the server and manually restart it. Nowadays, all of the frameworks and libraries are smart enough to detect the change and restart themselves. But yeah, in React, it is also the case that whenever we save some file, it automatically starts the React, it automatically restarts the React server, and then you don't have to manually basically do that thing, and the changes that you will be seeing are always real time. For example, if I show you, so yeah, let's understand this directory first, and then I will show that example. So readme.md file is basically one of those files which has all the instructions on it, like how you can do things. For example, it says that in the project directory you can run npm start, which we just did, and it is running the server, right? And it is also saying that it will be it will be running in this one localhost port 3000. And then if you want to test as in we can write test as well. For example, whenever we write some code, it is a good habit of putting tests for it as well, so that whenever we do some changes, we need to make sure that either we need to update those tests as well, or we need to make sure that old functionality should not break because of the new change. So that's why we put tests in everything that we do. So if you put your test over here, then also by simply running this command, you can test all the tests that you have written. But we won't be doing that in this session at least. And yeah, we don't have that by default as well. Okay. So yeah, that is one thing about npm run build is another command that is a very useful thing. Why this command is required is in server, and then whenever we work with React or Angular or Vue or any such application, we had to do something like this. Like often we had to run the npm start or something similar, something similar command, and it basically starts the server in the local host. But in reality, in production, we don't do this way. Rather, what we do is we actually run this command npm run build, and it builds one single HTML file. It builds one single HTML file, and we deploy that HTML file. Right. So there is no such node server and stuff like that. Consider that one HTML file is a static file, and basically all the logic that will be writing over here in the whole React repo, it will be basically it will be compressed, and it will not compress actually. Basically, it will put that thing in one HTML file, and that will be basically like one JS file, to be honest, and that will be deployed. And so basically, there you will have only one single HTML file and one single JavaScript file that will do everything for you, and so that you don't need to worry about anything and stuff like that. Okay, so we will try to build that as well. This is npm run eject tool. So we are not going to look much into, not we're not going to look much in we are not going to use this at any time in this project, and we are not going to look into it as well. But this thing is for example, as we talked in the initial, we had the separate version. We have several options to create a React application. One was via the create React application, one was via the Next.js, one was via the Gatsby, right? So they have their own specific. How they differ is, under the hood they are all running the React library, but but on the top of the hood, what they're doing is they have a specific way of compiling the files or the configuration choices and stuff that they have. So for example, if you have worked with these things, probably you might have heard things like the web packs and all those things and stuff like that, right? So if you're not happy with the current configuration, and if you want to change it, then you can run this command, but it is very advanced, and I will not recommend you to do it. Let this thing be as it is. Okay. So yeah, we are also not gonna look into it, and yeah, we are gonna we are gonna look further on it. So till now we have seen this package.json file. We are looked into this readme file. This gitignore file is basically and they are version control systems. What are control systems? Like for example, if you're working together in some project, if they are they are people who are working on a project, how we build the track, right? We save the file, we compress it, and we make it as zip file, and then we give that a version, and then we start, so that if something goes, so if something goes wrong, like we can use the old zip file and we can get started with this, right? But that is not the case. That is one way, but that is not very that is not very good or optimized way. So what we do, we use some version control system. So for example, in this case, by default, when we created this project, it is using Git as a version control system. So what it does, it basically it creates checkpoints whenever we do something. Whenever we do something, we create a checkpoint and then we can go back over it, right? Like, so this ignore whenever if we have put something over here, then it will track changes for everything except everything that we have put here, right? For example, this node module files is there, so it is not going to consider this node module folder at all. So even if you change anything over there, it will not detect it as a change in the commit in the changes that will be it will not be considering those changes inside the changes that it needs to create. And so yeah, those history inside those files or folders will not be saved at any time. Right, so that was about quick about the getting ignore thing. And one all thing also is there that since it does not considers it, even if you post this file to some like GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab, this all the files that are mentioned over here will not be posted in the when we post these changes from a local to server. If you don't know Git about Git and stuff, you can simply ignore it. That is not the topic of the discussion for today. So I was just giving you the heads up. If you know, then this is good. If you don't know, yeah, just leave it. Just keep it in the parking. Right. So now we have these two folders. One is the public and one is the SRC one. So this SRC one is you might get one feeling that SRC resembles its source, right? So in our whole React application, whatever changes that we are having are actually inside this whole SRC. Whatever changes, whatever JavaScript file that we put here are actually gonna run, right? So for example, let's see, if you see edit, it also says it edit this file and just save it to reload it. So if I go inside it, if I go inside the src app.js, you see that we have something. Let's not freak out. Okay, we will get after we will understand every piece of it and we'll learn it. But just need to understand that we have some familiar as well. That is this HTML, right? What is this HTML? That is division, that is header, that is image, that is PPA and stuff like that. Right? This is something that we already know. How we know? We know from a previous session that it resembles with the HTML that we have already learned, right? And yeah, it is exactly that as well. Okay, now the question is how it differs from HTML. And this is one question that we'll also be looking. So as we were talking about this folder, right? This src folder. So this folder is everything. For example, this is a css file that we know. Why is this css file? Because it is defining the styling for our whole application where we'll be using it. And we were talking about the test files as well, right? So if we run the npm test command, then this test will run that we have defined over here. And again, then we have another css file, then we have a index.js file and stuff like that. Okay, so let's try to understand the package.json file. Okay, so whenever we run the npm start command, in all of the javascript projects, there is one section that is known as scripts. Okay, so whenever I run a command, npm space the command, it basically checks it up here. So for example, when I ran npm start, it basically ran this command react scripts space start. What it does, it actually initiates, it actually runs the whole react application that we have, right? So if you run the eject command, then you can configure all these options, like how you want to run it, how you want to configure it and stuff like that, which we are not looking in the session as of now. So that's why I skipped that part, right? So if I run the npm build command, then it will look for the specification that I have provided over here, and it will run it. So there are two options that you can do. Either we can simply copy this command and simply run it. For example, I will show you. I think yeah. Let's close the server. Uh, okay, I think I close it, and let's run this command. And you will see that you cannot run this command directly. The reason is that it is not actually able to detect that command that is there with a project, but it is not able to run. It is not able to detect it. because it is also, you can see that probability will be there in dependencies. Yeah, it is there in dependencies, but still it does not run it like that. So for example, there are some ways when we want to configure it in a way where probably sometimes we want to pass some environment variables and stuff like that. So you can simply update that thing here, and then that will make it work. But you cannot run it directly. You still have to run this thing npm and start, and then it will basically start the React server. That how it is currently, how it was currently working as well, right? So yeah, this was about it. And there's an if you want, we can configure it to so one question that you might have is how it is deciding, how it is actually deciding to basically give me a minute, something popped up. Okay, yeah. So one question that you might have is how it is knowing that this is the index.js file which it has to pick, right? This is one of the basic question. How does it know that it has to pick from this specific index.html file and not some other file like app.js and stuff like that. So that is basically being configured by this in React scripting, right? Whenever we start our server like this, then it is actually looking for an index.js file inside the SRC directory, and it basically runs it. So this is the entry point for our npm start command. Npm start command, it will just look for the index.js file, and it will run it, right? So in the index.js file, we are doing something like where we have this React DOM thing which we don't know what is it. And then it is actually calling a render method over it, and then again we have something like something similar to HTML, but it does not exactly look like an HTML thing. Okay, so yeah, again let's look into it. So apart from this src file, we also have one public file. Like that public file is basically index.html file and stuff like that, right? So how it basically runs it has every React project will have a index.html file. Inside that there might be something like this division id equals to root, and then this one, right? So whenever whatever we will do, it will basically run inside this HTML page, and that is how the React is going. That is how the React works, right? We will have single HTML file. Inside it, it will put everything that we will be writing, and that is one thing that it will run under the hood. Uh, how now again now again how does it know that it has to put it inside this specific HTML directory? Then let me open it. Let me open this thing in the side, open to the side, and yeah, you can see, I think you can see both of the files side by side, right? So if you see, we are saying that we have to render this thing, we have to render this thing where document.get element by id, where we are providing the id as a root, right? And we know this thing, right? We know this thing, we use this thing to get some of the DOM element inside any of the HTML page in via the JavaScript, and we are actually basically manipulating with it, and that is what we are doing inside this function as well. What we are doing is we are defining that we want to render, or we want to render everything inside this index.html file. That is also, it will always pick the in index.html file by default, unless you unless you change it to some different way. But by default it will use that only, and inside the HTML file it will look for the division or something, some HTML element with the root tag, and there it will print it. Okay, so this no script tag is useful. For example, when we want to run the JavaScript, the browser in the browser, JavaScript should be enabled. If it is not enabled, then that JavaScript script is not gonna work, and this no script actually looks for it. So for example, you might want to do some if else if the JavaScript is, so JavaScript, like it acts like a feature sort of thing in browsers where you can disable it as well. Earlier it was possible. I'm not sure about the latest versions of the browser whether they allow it or not, but I'm confident that there might be an option as well where you can disallow JavaScript to be executed on any of the web pages. In that case, if JavaScript is not allowed, our whole React app is not actually gonna work. So that's why we have put this no script thing. So if JavaScript is basically not enabled, then this thing will run, and it will simply print that you need to enable JavaScript to run this app, and then they have to go into browser, and they will manually enable this disable earlier disabled JavaScript option, and then it will again run. Okay, so for example, again, if I make changes over here, for example, you can see this title thing and other things are something that we are not defined over here, rather we have defined in this HTML page. So if we say, let's say, let's change it to iTalk and React session, and if we say it, we have saved it, and you see this automatically, this page basically refreshed automatically, and then now the title has changed as well. So there are options with which we can define these titles inside this React app as well. But yeah, again, but we will see if the time permits. We'll jump into it. But if it does not, then we'll basically look in the fundamentals of the React and we'll try to build something out of it, and then we'll work. Okay. So yeah, let's try to understand this thing. So React DOM is, so what is a DOM? In any of the web page, DOM is document object manipulation thing. So DOM stands for document object manipulation. So basically, it returns the whole HTML body inside in as a form of as form of an object that we are also using document.getElement by ID and stuff. So React DOM is like one version of that DOM itself that React uses internally. So React is a different concept of using it. So if you consider it, and then there's one single page, and with our React library, we are updating it manually. Whenever we change that field, the page is same, but we are changing it. We are manually re-entering the page, and we are updating it. And they have different they have specific algorithm and stuff like that for it. So all that thing can be done inside this React DOM thing that they already have. So we pretty much should not change it unless you know what we're doing with it. And this file usually is the same thing. We usually don't change this unless we want to change this thing and stuff. But usually in most of the cases you would not want to change them because it is working like a charm, and we should let it work like that. Okay, so now again, see this thing React.strict mode. This is one thing that we are using. So yesterday, if you remember in the session, I was talking about that there is a strict mode in whenever we code in JavaScript. We have a strict mode thing, right? So if we run everything on the script, if we run something on the strict mode, then it will allow certain things. And if we don't run things on a strict mode, then basically it will allow few vulnerabilities, or probably some things that might cause some security issues. But if you run those things on strict mode, then it will basically block those things. For example, yesterday we were seeing, right, that we wanted to redeclare one variable with JavaScript with a definition of with ES6 and stuff. We should be able to, but since we're using the strict mode, it would not allow us, right? So since we're using it like this, if you don't use it like this, then there's another option how we do it. I am not remembering the exact. I'm not remembering the exact syntax of it, but it is something like use strict and something like that, and then we make some functions, and we have a callback function which basically has all these things, and then we use it like that. So yeah, that is also there. But so this was about it, I think. I'm not sure what did I change. Okay, let's see what everything, and yeah, I think it should be fine. It is already fine, right? Okay. So now let's understand what is this. Like we are writing this commands in almost all of the places that import this from this, and then we have some strange ones like that only says import, and then it passes the file name, right? Then again we have something. These are something that we don't know what are they, but these are something that we probably know because these are the name of the files. And again, then we have again several such files, such JavaScript files, right? So one thing is how you can use some of the already defined objects in React. One way of is using the package. For example, React is one of the dependency or one of the package that has been installed by default in it. So we are using React from it. Likewise, React DOM is already also one such package from React DOM. That is what we are using it. And in cases where where there's no export, so whenever we want to import something, there has to be some export from the source first, and then only we should be able to import it. For example, I will show that in this way. so if we see, like, we are importing this app from .app, right? But in this whole JavaScript file, there can be a lot of functions, there can be a lot of classes and stuff like that. So how does our this JavaScript file will know that we are, like, referring to that specific function? One way of, like, defining one export, like we export, we can export this function. For example, I have defined this function and I can export it, like export app. And one thing is there, like whenever we are exporting something, there has to be one default export. If there are no default export, for example, if I don't have any, if I remove the default word, I think, uh, I'm not exactly remembering the syntax, but if you, for example, okay, yeah, we don't actually export it like that. Or rather, what we will do is then we'll have to do it something like that. I think it should, yeah, it broke. Then I think it should, yeah. So when we change this, when we when we asked it to not export anything, it basically broke, saying that export app was not found in app because we are not exporting it. But I think since we have updated it, I think it should work. Probably, yeah. On refreshing it, or even without refreshing, it should work. But for some reason, it is breaking. Okay, I think we have to do something like this, export. So yeah, if there are no we can export anything. We can export a function, we can export a class, we can export a variable, right? So since we are not exporting a default thing, we have to, like, we have to use that imports inside the braces. But if we have a default export, for example, if we have a default export, then we will have this something like this, and then this will not work, then it will be directly available to it. So then this is senseless. So then we do something like this, and then it should again work like a charm, that how it was working earlier. Okay, so you got the concept of this exports, right? Like we have two ways of exporting anything from one JS file to another one. The one way is basically using the export keyword on like in front of the name of the function, or declaration of the function, or declaration of the variable or classes. One way is like, defining a by default export. So for example, we can have several other function here as well, right? Function, let's say func1, and so let's say it does something, right? So if we, okay, let's make it do something like simply console.log and then blah blah blah, right? Let's make it do something like that. Now if I want to use this func2 one here, how I will do it, since app is one that is being exported by default, I can use the app as it is. But for case of this, then again I will have to do something like func and then func2, and then that's how it will work. So it should work. It should, yeah, it should work, right? So for anything that is not, okay, I think I have not exported it by default, but if it is working, ideally it should be like this itself, export from a function and stuff like that, right? And it should work. So there are two ways of what I'm trying to show is there are two ways of exporting and importing. If you don't have a default export by default, then we will have to manually, like, we have to wrap that import variable inside the curly braces, and then how it will import it. Now second question that you might have is, like, does the name of the import has to be the does, like, both the names should be equal, like both the names should be equal. Like for example, I'm exporting as app, can I should this name should also be the same as app, or it can be different? That is one basic question that also comes into mind of many one. So again, since it is a default export, no matter whatever you write over here, it will always be imported. It will always be, it will be imported, and it will be, like, it will be this specific variable name will be updated with that value. For example, if I change this value, let's say no, let's make it home, app home, and if I again make it app home, and if I save it, it should work. It should not reflect anything, because since it is a default export, right? If it is a default export, no matter whatever function and stuff, the things that you written over here, this will be exported by default, and that is what we are going to use over here as well, right? So yeah, this was about it. Now let's come to this file. Like, that what is this, like we have some HTML and we have some JavaScript over here. Like we are defining a JavaScript function, but then we are returning some HTML over here, right? So these are known as JSX. JSX. What is JSX? JavaScript and XML. JavaScript and XML. If you don't know XML, then XML and XML and Java, XML and HTML are literally similar. The only differentiator between them is HTML is used to HTML is used to represent the data, and XML is used to store the data. For example, if I use, let's say, if I find some sample XML file. I don't know why Google keeps me. Google does this with me every time, but yeah, let's see this sample XML file. So if you see there also, you can see that it is like very much similar to HTML, right? We have some tags, and then we have some another we again we have some tags, and then again we have some tags inside them, and then this keeps then and this keeps and it keeps going on, right? So in it looks very familiar with the it looks very similar with the HTML. The only difference is that in here we don't have any doc type, and we have not defined it as HTML or XML. Rather, we have this XML version. In any of the XML files, it has to be there in the top of the file. Then we have several tags. So, for example, in HTML we had a specific format, right? That we have a head. If we see over here, if we open this file, index.html file, we have this format, right? We have a global HTML tag. Inside that we have a single head, and then inside that we have a body, right? So any of the HTML page is defined in this way. HTML top of the element is an HTML tag. Then we have a head, which basically defines used to define the titles and importing CSS file and stuff like that. And then we have the body, which literally has the main thing that is going to actually be represented to you by that page, right? But in XML it is not the case, right? So as I said, as I said, HTML is used to represent the data, but XML is used to store the data. If you see, we have this we have this we have this tag on a repeating way, and it has it is there in a very specific format. For example, this is the book. If you interpret it, this is the book. The idea of the book is this. The inside the book, the author of the book is this. The title of the book is this. The genre of the book is this, and so on, right? So if you see, it does not have any data about that it is a body, or it is a it is a title, it is or a heading H1 H2, or a paragraph, or a list L1 L2, stuff like that. Rather, it has something different, but these are also tags, right? So the main differentiator over this is, in whenever we define some XML, you are free to choose any other tag that you want. You don't have to you don't have to necessarily use the predefined tags that you have. Like in case of HTML, you cannot define your own tag in yourself. You have to use the one defined by the HTML standards and stuff, which browser understands. So, in HTML case, it is HTML head, body, T, S1, not T, B, U, I, and then S1, S2, S3, S6, and stuff, and then paragraph or P, HRBI, and all those table, T, STDTR, right? All those tags are defined tags, and you cannot redefine it. If you change it to some other tag, the browser will basically not understand it, and it will not print it, it will not show it as it should. But in case of XML, you're free to literally you define your own tag that you want, and it will work. There is no such foundation on what kind of properties that you would want to define on the tag. For example, in this book tag, we are actually passing a param as ID equals to BK101, right? But in HTML, it is some defined way. In XML, you can pass anything, and you can then you will just have to, whenever if you want to use that XML file, then you will have to you have to make sure that you are actually passing it correctly. In that way, you are actually fetching all those values that are there over here, right? So the only thing is that XML says that whenever we're defining an XML, it should have an outer tag. For example, in this case, catalog tag is one tag that we have, and that is the main tag. Inside the catalog tag, we have these books and stuff, right? So if we remove this catalog tag, and if we start putting this book tag, then this XML file will become an invalid file because it says that it should be enclosed in the one root tag, and then inside that you can define any number of tags, and you can you can literally do anything. There is no such there is no such foundation of it. So yeah, this was about XML. Now, so to be specific, this is not actually JavaScript. It is actually JSX, a combination of JavaScript and XML. How an XML? Because because in this thing, whatever we are returning, we are in a in a glimpse, you will see that this is an HTML, but this is an HTML written in an XML way. For example, whenever we write HTML, if you remember correctly, in the day one we were talking about HTML, and we talked about two kinds of tags. Right? One there is one tag basically that we have to close every time. For example, when we are defining a division, we have to close it. Whenever we are defining an header, H1, H2, H3, or H6, we have to close it. But there are some other tags as well which we don't need to close. For example, when we define a line break, when we define a rule break, or when we define something image, when we define image and stuff, right? So in case of HTML, if you run this, it will work, but in React it will not allow it, because React says this, because React passes this file as an XML, and then basically it converts these XMLs into their corresponding HTML, and then it uses it, right? So at the end, whatever you're writing over here is similar to HTML, like the tags and all are like literally the same thing, but it is an XML. So in XML, array tags should be closed. So for example, even if I make a new book tag, and if I think that I will not close it and it will work like we have like we have in HTML, right? We have certain tags like br and image and stuff like that. So this thing those things are not valid in XML. Like we have to close it no matter what. One way of closing it, like one way is writing the code like this, and we one way of closing tags is like this, and the another way is simply just append a slash inside the tag, and it will automatically close it for you. Okay, so yeah, that's why it is a JSX. It is JavaScript XML, not a plain JavaScript or not plain HTML. Okay. So now let's try to understand what it is actually doing in the hood, under the hood, right? So we know this thing, right? What it is doing is it is actually putting all the content that is there inside this app. Whatever app is returning, it is literally putting that thing inside the root directory of this index.html file. So are we clear with it? How this React is working? If you have some doubt, then maybe put in the chat. I will immediately see it, and I will try to answer it as a first priority. Okay. So I think if you're good, let's write some React. Let's jump to React. Let's do some answer, right? So we have already seen that we can, whenever we save something, it automatically reloads itself, and that is what we can do here as well. Let's remove this, and let's make it hello world. And when we save this, when I press Control Save, it will automatically start. If you see the logs, so it basically clears the logs, but it states that this file has been updated, and it then restarts the server and does this. But it was a bit quick, so we could not see it, but it does that in logs as well, right? So we change it to hello world, and it becomes a hello world, right? Now let's understand few of the basic things as we were talking in the initial, right? That there might be certain places where for example, let's say let's make a simple page, maybe or maybe let's take a simple template, and then let's take a simple simple HTML template, and let's try to use our React over it, right? So simple dashboard single page HTML template. Okay, and I will try to show you uh, how we can pick use it to basically how React is useful, and why there's so much hype about React, and why we're not using it by writing a single query like document not get amendment this and doing it. So I'm looking for one template, because then otherwise you'll not you'll not connect with it what I'm trying to show over here. So These are all like fancy pages, and I think they're not free. Probably, I am not sure if they're free at all. So let's leave them. Okay, this dribble. I think these are all also going to be fancy something. So let me collect one that I have been using. Bulma, Bulma. Okay, so yeah, I think we have one HTML page. Let's try to use it. Okay, this is again some React project which we are not obviously interested. So okay, yeah, this looks familiar. I think this is something that probably that you can see. Okay, so yeah, probably we can use it, and let's see the download option, and let's just copy the whole HTML thing. Okay, so let's maybe just see the raw version of it, and then simply copy everything which they have. Okay, it is not going fast. Okay, so we need something like this till here. Let's copy this thing. This is something that is gonna go inside the body part. So again, we probably might have to update it because there might be cases where. So what first we need to do is we need to remove this index.css file. The reason otherwise whatever CSS we are gonna use now will get reflected, and I think this page should be broken right now. Interesting, it is not. So I think yeah, we'll have to do it. No, no, no. Yeah, load the page here. Okay, yeah. So till it is loading, let's just replace it with this, and I think we should be good to go. Maybe. Okay, we have a division. We have okay. This is something that is not valid in our case. If we save it, there's a division, and then there is one. Okay, so there indentation problem that we can fix, and I think this should also okay. Okay, so yeah, again, as I was saying, right, that these are JSX. These are JSX as in every tag requires closing. So, for example, it is saying that there is an input tag that is not closed. So when we write the HTML thing, we don't have to close it, and we don't have to worry about closing it ever. But since we are using React, we have to close it, right? So we have to fix it everywhere. So let's find the input tags and let's close it. How we close it? I will do some quick way. I will find all the tags that we have, and then I will place it at once, and hopefully they should be fixed now. Okay, it has built. Okay, yeah, again, so it has built it, but now it is missing the reference of the CSS files, right? So the quick way of doing it is literally let's just copy this thing. Let's just copy the Bulma CSS and stuff, and let's just use it, right? So these are the ones. So I we just go on the index.html file, and inside the index.html file we have some section in the head we can import it, right? And I just did it, and it is again restarting the server, and let's see if it is okay. Yeah, it is good, right? It was real quick. So if you see what we did was we are just using this CSS file. All the design that we are seeing or is basically defined on this CSS file. So that's why we need to put it there. So again, there are several ways with which you can import CSS. One way is the plain old way how we do it, that we just define in the header, just we define in the head that these are the link that you have to consider as a CSS and that you have to use it. Other way are whenever you're using this any other front end libraries like Bulma or Bootstrap or materialize CSS or materialize and other things. So they have dedicated package for Node as well. So you can use it, either you can use it or you can just do it this way. I think this was quicker. This is always quicker. So I thought maybe let's why not let's use it, right? Because at then every content that we are gonna put is gonna be put inside this thing, inside this body thing, and they're gonna be executed. So and then we are like literally not doing anything. We're not doing anything like anything rocket science. We are just passing the CSS file to those HTML files so that it can pick it up and it can work it can display the whole page in a good way, right? Now, let's use this example. Now, let's use this example to now let's use it. Let's say I want to. So if you see there are various places where we are defining. For example, we are saying that we have this many users. We are saying we have this many products. We are saying we have this many orders. We have this many exceptions and stuff. Right. So let's say I want to. For example, let's say for some reason, let's assume that you have this in multiple places. For example, I will just try to fetch it. I will try to fetch this thing and okay, so yeah, we have this thing, right? We have 439K, we have 15K, we have 3.4K and stuff like that. Let's assume that these are all the users, but in a different in a different place, in a very different place, right? So we have this many users. I'm just going to give you like a very lame example, and let's assume I think you should restart. Yeah. So if you see, no, I did the change and the page even did not refresh automatically, right? So this is magic what React does, or whenever it hot reloads, it compares the changes and then it only reloads the portion that is updated, not the whole page. So for example, if I want, let's say let's also have this thing in variable. So in whenever we are working with React, we have a we by default React has a concept of states. Okay, so I think we skipped this learning part itself. Okay, so yeah, we talked about the ZSX as I was showing you, that we have this we write this HTML in form of an XML, and we do it. Then yeah, rendering element. So we also looked into it, that we how we are rendering it. Then component there. So there is a very good concept of components and elements. So in React, everything is a component. So for example, if you see next.js file, what is this app home? This is actually a component that we have built. So in React, whatever we will build is gonna be a component. For example, if we build this dashboard, if we build this dashboard in a good way, then this navbar will altogether be a component. That this routing thing will be altogether a component. This sidebar will be a component. The greeting thing will be a component, and this thing that you are showing over here, that you are seeing here, will also gonna be a component. This inventory search thing is gonna be a component and stuff like that. This whole table is gonna be a component, and other and likewise, right? So in React, everything is component. What is a component? Either it can be a function that is basically rendering, basically that is rendering in JSX or HTML, or it can be a class that is gonna that's gonna do it, right? So in React, we can do this thing in two ways. One way of defining components is by keep making a class and then defining it. The other way is making a class and then in class defining the render method and stuff like that. So usually, over the years, it has been found that class methods are also good. Just that, just what happens is whenever we keep on changing the for example, you'll be let's say the Facebook. It is a very big app, right? So if you know how a function is executed, or how a call is actually executed in the life cycle of any of the in any of the operating system, that we maintain a maintain a stack, right? That for example, if I call a function, let's say I call a function func1. So that function call will be put in the stack, and then inside the function, if I'm calling another function, let's say function2, so then on top of function1 we'll put the function2 class, function2 function 2 in the stack, then if the function 2 calls function 3, that is going to be put on top of it. When function 3 gets executed completely, then the function 3 will be removed, then function 2 will be removed, and function 1 will be removed at the end, right? So this thing becomes like quite heavy when we work with when we work with class in React, specifically the way they have implemented in class based implementation of components. So they suggest that if you go with the if you go with the function one, then it is not, it is gonna be very easy, and then it is gonna be quick as well. It is gonna be understandable as well, like that. So that's why we are also gonna be looking in the functional based one, because it is also a bit easier to check it when it is a functional based component, rather than when it is a class based component. To be honest, both are simpler, but the way that we define how we define the component becomes a bit tricky in class based one. And also, I don't know if if all of us actually are aware about the classes and stuff. So but we know what a function is on a very basic level. So let's work with the function thing, right? So yeah, when we define functions, so React actually provides one way of defining those variables. So those are known as states, if you look into it. So components and props, we talked about it as well. Also in React, there is a concept of state are basically some variable state and props. So for any variable that is going to be consumed within that component, we call it a state. Anything that we might want to pass to a to a child component, we call it a prop. Okay, are we clear over here? Like anything that is going to be used inside this component, for example, any variable that is going to be used only inside this app, we will call it as a state. Anything that is going to be used probably by the child component, or that is being passed by the parent component, we call it a prop. Okay, so how we define a state, we basically use it we do thing like, let's say, one is title and one is set title, and then we do it like that. So this is one of the basic state. Okay, now let's try to understand it. This is very tricky thing. Okay, I also have not imported React, but I think it should break. It should not. Yeah, it should break, right? Because we have not imported React over here. So let's quickly import it. Import React from React, and okay, I have a typo. Yeah, it should work now. It should work. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. So React has a method called use state, and then whenever how we define a state, we basically you can use where or let. A const will not work, because const means basically it cannot be updated, right? So in the array there has to be two elements to be specific. One element is actually gonna be that variable. The second element is actually gonna be the name of the function that will basically update it. Okay, so for example, when we how we are doing it, we are using this react.useState method, and we are passing the default value. For example, let's pass this default hello world method, and here, or let's say hello admin, it is saying, right? So let's change this hello admin thing. Let's search for it, and let's change this thing. Let's change it to use the hello the title that we have put, right? And how we pass the title, we just include we just enclose that variable inside the braces, and you will see the value that we were passing over here, hello world, is actually being used directly over here, hello world. Yeah, okay. So the variable, this variable will be used in over here, and inside the say title function. Yeah, so let's go to documentation as well. So okay, so yeah, again, this class based function which we had already talked about, and then you said, let me just search for it. Use state. Okay, okay, handling event. Uh, Okay, they have used the class-based example, but okay, no worries. We will use our example on our own. Okay, so yeah, so for example, we will how why this function is actually returning an array, and why the size of the array has to be 2, and why I'm like, no, why I have defined it like that. Like there is one title, and there is one thing that is known as set title, right? So the idea is that, like, if I'm defining a state, the use state function is also passing me one function with which I can actually update that variable. So if I see, like, if I try to do something like, let's say, like, what we do is, like, it is just a variable, right? What if we think, like, we can just make title equals to blah blah blah, and will it work? Let's see. It will work, right? It will work as it is, because it is a single variable. But let's say, for example, in the runtime, when we will change the variable, for example, in the runtime, okay, so this is a rendering time, right? Right, right, this is a rendering time, and only this place is actually using it, right? There can be quite possibilities that this single variable can be used in the multiple places inside the whole application. Like, for example, just consider the dashboard, like, consider complex dashboard like AWS console or GCP console or Azure DevOps board, stuff like that. Like, they are very, very complex, and this is quite possible that single variable is actually being used in multiple places. So this is the whole point of using the variable, right? That we can use the same value at multiple places, for computation, for representation, or anything like that. And then the idea is, I have to update it once, and it will be good. It will be reflected in all of the places. Okay. So if I update it like this, if I, like, if I set the title equals to blah 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 at some places in this return function, or via some method, like, the thing is that this will not be the React will not know that this variable has changed, and that's why it will not update it will not update all of the components that are actually using that variable. That is why it says that, like, use the set title method to set the title, and there that's how, like, that's how you can actually update any of the state. So that when we use the function that is being written on by the this use state method, then it knows that, like, and if you're doing any if we are doing anything, that function is being called, then we basically have to update the specific state, and then it will like, update the components that are using those variables. I'm not sure if it was like, understandable in a very good way. But if it is not, then, like, let me know in the chat probably, or let me know. Uh, Maybe put it in the chat. I will repeat, or put it somewhere and stuff. Okay. So yeah, that is one way, right? That is why we are not going to update it directly. Other, what we are going to do is, we are going to use this head title function, and that is how we are actually going to update it. So let's see how we can update it. Let's remove this, and yeah. So if you see, like, we had quite some input fields. Okay, so this is the inventory search. So let's change this. Let's make it to actually update the title. Inventory search. So I want to update the title here. Update the title, and yeah, this should be quick. Update the title thing. Okay, now we have a now we have input field over here, right? We have input field, we have a overlink, yeah, we are not worried about, yeah, and then we have a division. Input is last, type is text, and paste equal to please enter the new title. Okay, I think it should be quick. Yeah, please enter the new title, and whatever you put here should be reflected over here. That is what I'm gonna show to you guys, we can do it. So first of all, what we have to do is, we have to define, like, we have to assign a value to it. Like, array input field always have a value, like we did yesterday. Likewise, we have to do that today as well. I lost where I put, okay, put the new title, and then I put the value equals to, again, then again I'm using this title method. Okay, that on the value of this will be the value inside that field will be the value that the title has. So you just saw, right, this title, we are initializing this state variable with this hello world, and as I put it here, like, this is also getting reflected over here, like, now the thing is that, if I'm trying to change this variable, like, if I am trying hard, literally I'm trying hard, I'm putting everything, I'm trying to, like, delete this thing, but I'm not able to. The reason why it is not happening, because it is actually deleting whenever I'm keep pressing it. but this value that is being passed to this function, it is actually it has not updated. So this yeah, so this the value over here, whenever I am making some change over here, this is it is actually updating it, but it is so fast that it deletes it. But the thing is that the value that it should have, the variable that is actually holding the value of this title is actually not updating itself, because we are not making it update itself, right? So that is why it is not being updated. So how we can do it? We can define this on change function, and then we can do something like this, right? So every input field has this on change option, or every input field has a, like, option in whenever we are using it on in React. Every input field has an option of on change. What it does, it we have to basically pass a function to it. So again, if you remember, we are actually defining a arrow function. How we're defining an arrow function is, we are actually passing the value. Let's say, we are defining a function that will accept a value, and what that function will do, again, it will simply call the set title method. That is what that is that we just got with this thing, that we got with when we define the state. And it is actually, we are passing the correct value to this function. Now it will work. How it will work? Now if I change this thing, you will see that this thing is working. Hello world, right? How it is working, whenever I have a change over here, it is actually having the change. And this, what is this e is actually the element. Let's make it an a, so that it will be a bit clear. This is the element, and how we get the value of that specific element. What is element? This element is the element. This ele is this element, this input box. And how we get the value of it? Element dot target dot value. Okay. Whenever I will change something over here, what it will do is, it will, it will take the value, and it will call the set title function. It will pass that value to the set title function. And then this set title function will, by default, will, will update this state variable that it has. So this is the correct way of, updating it. Now, for example, let's say, if I let's try to update this thing, right? Let's make another state, and let's do it like let users and set users. Okay. Then React users, and then we want to initialize it with a count like 0. Then let's find this thing, this 439 thing. Okay. Now if I try to do this something like this, and pass it as users, and I update it as well like users. I update it as well like users. Okay. Now if you will see that, okay, I think I have a typo somewhere. Okay, yeah, I have not closed this. That was the issue. It should be updated to 0, right? Now all these values have been updated to 0, and they all correspond to the single variable that we have defined on the top in the state. What is this? That this state is like, users, and then again we have a function called set users, and by default we have passed a value of 10. Let's say, let's make it 10. This should be fun, just to make it fun. Okay. Now let's update this field to actually update the value over there. Let's use a search thing, and what let's do is, update uh, users count. And over here what I do uh, is I pass a value field over as we did over there. And what we're doing is, uh, we have defined this user variable, so we'll have to use the user variable. And then again we did this on change. Again we pass the element, and then we got this value, and again it will be done. Okay. So again, you saw as a previous example, the value of this 10, the value of this is actually defined. We have defined the initial value as 10. That's what is also coming over here. So if I see, like, if I make it 12, you will see that they are all getting reflected in the same time, like in an instant, right? And this is why using states and all other things are very, very, this is the power of, using state, though. So that, if we do this if we try to do this in, without the React, how we'll have to do it, whenever we'll update this thing, will on change will make a JavaScript function that will by default that will basically by default know the ID of all these four fields. And then for example, let me show you. Let me just symbolically show you so what I will have to do is I have to make an ID over here, this is users one. Okay, users one, then for this users two, then for the users three, then users four. And then what I will have to do is whenever I update it in the update function, I will have to make document dot get element by ID, and then in ID I will have to pass user one dot value equals to the new value document dot get element by ID. And then again I'll have to pass users underscore to ID, and then dot value equals to this, like that. So I will have to do that in four places if I want to update all the values of these four things, right? But and just consider one thing, if I have to do that thing for, let's say, tens of the places, then literally I'll have to keep track of all the 10 elements, the IDs of those elements that are there, right? Whether in this case I don't care about it, right? What I do is I have just passed it. I have just passed the variable to it. Whenever that value gets updated, it will automatically get updated. And that is why we use this frameworks like this. So this is one of the examples why why this input and all other things are very very useful for us, and why we use it. So this is one example which I wanted to show you guys. And then again, so yeah, technically this thing are called as hooks in React. Hooks as in HOOKS. Okay, so what is happening is we are defining a state, and then we are defining a hook. Set title is hooked with the title state. Whenever we will pass some value to set title hook, it will automatically update the title. It will automatically update the title state, and correspondingly, the React will re-render the or update the update the components that are using that variable. We don't have to keep track of where in which of the places we are using it, and in which of the places because it can happen in human. We are all human, right? It can happen that we forgot to update it for some place, and then it got broken and stuff like that, right? So yeah, these are in technical terms in React, these are called as hooks. So set title is a hook, set users is a hook, and yeah, this is just one use of hooks and stuff. Then again, for example, and again, there is a very good concept. There is one good thing of React as well. You can actually use if and else over here. For example, let's do one thing. Let's do one thing, that let's play with React. Let's only show this thing only if the count of users are greater than 10. Okay, so if you see, we are using this users variable, and okay, we are using this users variable, and yeah, this is over here. So let's, yeah, this has everything over there. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's define one variable over here, that is let show users count, and then again set show users count, and then we are making it false by default. And then whenever we are updating the users over here, whenever we are updating the users, that is here, what we're doing is let's make it a function. Let's make it a bigger function, and let's do it like this. And then we also update it set so users true or false. So if the element of driver dot value, that is this, if this value is greater than 10, then do this thing. Okay, yeah, then do this thing, else set users count as false. Okay, so did you get this? We have just simply updated this function. Whenever we will update the users, we will also check that if the updated value is if it is less than, if it is greater than 10, then we'll show it, otherwise we'll hide it, right? And one thing let's to do is let's make it number anything. Yeah, Okay, okay, that is there. Now we have to use it value at some places. As we did, I think we have defined. Okay, yeah, here. Okay, so what we do is we just do this like if this is, yeah, if this is true, then we just do this thing. So it is what is this, like it is a it is a like no shorthand of if and else. I will walk you through it. Okay, and yeah, this looks good. Okay, so if show users count is true, then this will be executed. If it is false, then again we can chain it like with this this, and then again we can put it like that. But we don't want to do something. We don't want to do anything in else case. That's why we're doing. I think we have some error over here. Okay, yeah, it is actually expecting. Okay, so it is actually expecting. So yeah, if you simply want to use the if thing, then okay, let me show you. That will be actually quick easier. So if you remember, this is a shorthand note of if and else, right? We use question mark. So if this condition is true, then we will go with this. Otherwise, what we will do is like we will go over here and then again no, we need to use this bracket, and then we are printing as h4. Let's see where, let's see, no users AVI available, and let's see. Okay, so if you see, I think let's use this classes. I think that will be helpful. And no users available. Okay, no users available. It is there. I think let me make it S1. That will be bold. No users available. I think there's something with the CSS that we are using, which we are not, which I'm not looking, which I don't want to look at as now. But because as now we need to look in the conditional rendering, right? For example, if let's say if I do it 13, then you will see this users available. If I make it, let's say 14 and stuff, if I make it is all other things, it works good, right? But if I make it one, then even if I make it none, if I make it one, then it will not. If I make it 10, when I make it 12, it will instantly work, right? You see saw that like we are rendering some components based on some of the like if else cases. So for example, again, let's consider like if we want to do this with the vanilla JS, what we'd have to do is we will have to again pass like some ID over here that, and again then whenever we will be updating this, whenever we will be updating this value, we will be actually again like document dot get element by ID, then dot again then dot style dot css is equals to dot hidden equals to and stuff like that. We'll have to do all those things, DOM manipulation with the vanilla JavaScript that you do. That is not difficult, but it becomes a pain when we are actually like when we are working with a very big dashboard and it is not cool. So we saw about states. This is also one of the states to uses count, and that is how we are using it to actually like we are using it actually to render a component like in a conditional basis, and also we can run loops over here as well, and we can use all those things that we could with the that we can do in normal program. We can use loops, we can use like these things, we can use if else, we can do conditional rendering, we can put some custom JS over here as well to do something, and then all. So it is just it is just the possibility that I'm showing you. But I think if you have worked, if you will work in the front end without this React and stuff, then you will get the pen, and then you will be able to actually connect with it, like that these are the issues that probably you will get when you don't have this React and stuff. For example, when I built my first dashboard, I actually used to hate JavaScript because I did not. The reason number one was I did not know JavaScript, and I actually wanted to avoid it because I did not want to learn a new language, to be honest. But at one point, it became a pain. Like for example, whenever I have to update one thing, I have to refresh the whole page, and it was not easy. It was a very it was my first project, and the UX was not very good. So then I learned JavaScript, and whatever I'm saying to you, right? That you will, whenever you click on the button, then you get the ID of all the elements. You fetch all the those elements by the ID, and then you manually do operations for there. This is something that I have personally done, but then when I learned it, it made my job very easier. Okay. Over here also, so for example, if I just care about the if condition, like if this exists, then only I have to do something. If it does not exist, then I don't have to care about the else one. So you can simply use this %. If this condition is true, then it will be printed. If this condition is not true, then you don't have to carry, you don't have to you don't have to worry about everything. It will just work fine. If I make it 10, it will automatically disappear because I don't want to do anything when the case is not there. And these are just the possibilities that I showed you. I just showed you the tip of the bug that is there. I just showed you a very minute introduction of React that is there, and that is all it. We I think we have seen most of it. The only thing is that we have almost seen about the shared and life cycles. We have talked about handling events as well. Handling events as in on click and this on change functions are basically these are the handlings. Whenever, for example, in input fields, what we can put as as an event is on change event, or whenever on a button thing we can put on click events. So whenever we click something, we do something over there. For example, let's put one here. So let's make it like whenever someone clicks on this, in this tick, or okay, this will be better. Whenever someone clicks on this action button, let's pop something. Okay, let's pop the title that is there, or let's alert it like that. Okay, so let's find this action button first. This is the action button, and again this is the HRI, right? So this will not work in the real. It's a SRF thing. The whole routing thing that probably we do with the vanilla JS is actually not gonna work. So that's why we are gonna remove the HRF thing. Rather, instead of that, we are gonna put on click event, and then on click again. Again, we make some function, and we pass the element, and then we do something like this. And in this, I just want to do alert, and I just want to alert the title that is put there. Okay, so I think this is the first action out of it. So if I click here, you will see this is the hello world that is getting printed. So if I say hello world, yeah, blah blah blah, and if I say click, then you will see that this is actually it is actually working, right? So what I have just done, I have just assigned one event that when someone clicks on this event, so when an on click event is called, I just want to I can just ignore to pass any variable, because literally I don't want to use it, because I just want to alert it, right? So yeah, these are some quite possibilities. These are these are the events these are the events that we these are the events, and you can handle them in many ways. One of them of handling it by defining a class over here. The other way can be just passing the name of the function and defining the function somewhere here inside this function or somewhere outside as well. That will also work. It is totally up to you how you want to handle those things. Then we have this conditional rendering thing, if else thing that we already saw. That if this is this, then I just showed you the shorthand notations of it. If the condition is so, then do this. If the condition is not that, for example, we might want to do that. If the user is not logged in, then we call them hello user. If the user is logged in, then we fetch the name, and then we say hello Mr. XYNZ, right? So that is what we can do, and then we can again use this. We can iterate over the list, and we can print all of this. For example, if you see in this example, we have this tens of items over here, right? So to be honest, do we need to define all the 10 elements? No. What we need is we need one array of all the elements, and we need array of all the items that we would want to print over there, and then we just run a loop, right? And that loop basically uh, puts or creates all those events, and it prints it nicely over there. That is something that becomes again very easy with this React. Again, if you try to do that with HTML, then you will have to render those things and do some JavaScript, and then with JavaScript again it becomes very complex. You will have to fetch the inner elements, and you will have to append some HTML elements again and stuff like that. Believe me, I have done that thing, and it is very painful, especially if it becomes, if, even if the use case becomes a bit broader. So likewise, we have some specific case of forms. Like so, forms are like basically similar to how we have it on React as well. But again, then it gives some of the again controls on the input fields and stuff like that, which is helpful. Which is helpful when we work with the React form. It basically combines it. As we saw, the input on change actions and stuff like that. This is all about it as well, and then lifting states up and all those things. So yeah, we just talked about like how we can we just talked about like how we are actually using states. Likewise, there is a possibility, like for example, when we are calling like no let's make one element. Let's do one thing, let's do one thing that let's make one component, be it panel.js. Okay, what does this panel do? Let me split it. I will show you how you can pass the element from parent to child and how you can utilize it as well. Okay, so let me find the users because I want to print it out there. Okay, so users is there again, and let me do one thing that, yeah, let me copy it. Let me make it a function panel. Okay, export default function panel. This is a function, and then return, and in the return thing I'm just literally printing this id. Okay, now okay, now just like that. And again, I want to import it, so what I do is import panel from dot, and if you see that we should have a panel, yeah, we should have a panel.js. I think this should not break anything. Can't resolve dot panel. Okay, this is weird. Oh, okay. I think I have defined it in the wrong place. I have to define it inside the src file, and I think it should be fine now. And this says users is okay. Users is not defined. So for the time being, let's make it like 1 2 3 4. Okay, and this works. Okay. Now how as we talked earlier, like React is everything in React is basically anything in React is basically a component. So instead of doing this thing, what I can do is basically I can simply escape it and I can define it something like this, and you'll see that it works. It will work, right? So this first element is basically this it is coming from here, not here. And again, it becomes when we talk about reusability, then this thing becomes very very easy. I just need to do this, and voila, it is up. And again, you'll see that it is up and running very soon. Yeah, okay. So I am reusing all those things. Okay, I'm not rewriting the whole code again and again and again. Okay, now here comes the interesting part. I want to pass the users count from here to down there. Okay, so it is not like, because I am maintaining the state in this component, but I want to update the child components. Okay, how we can do is I can make it pass like something like users count equals to, and again I can pass it as users count. Oh no, I think we were using users variable. So let's do something like this. It will not work in the first go because we are not actually handling it down there in the child component, and it will literally not break anything. But in the child components, you can call it in any variable, but just to keep things like simpler, we just do it something like that. Yeah, these are the props, and then we define. Let's say we define one users things, and where we say like props dot users, and I think this should not break anything. Now we do something like this, users. Okay, so now what we're doing is we are passing it on users counting. Yeah, and I think now it should work probably. Yeah, now it works. Okay, so what we're doing is we have defined one component and we are passing one variable. So this user count is actually prop for this component. Okay, so if you see here, this title is a state for this component, but this user count thing that is coming from parent is a prop for this child component. Okay, so how we are passing it? We don't really do anything. You just make a property. You just make a property in the component, and you just pass the value, and yeah, we can fetch it on any single variable, and you will see that this will work like as it was working earlier, like nothing is changed. But now our code is more we are not repeating the use case, rather we are simply we are not reusing the same thing again and again. Rather, we are now our code is becoming more beautiful, more readable, and it is now easy to maintain. Now if I have to manage the content, then I don't have to okay, I think night vision is actually spoiling the game. I just happen to realize it now. Night light. Okay, let me see. I think otherwise it will be uh, night light display and okay, display. Okay. Night shift. I have to disable the night shift. Sunset to rise. No, off done. Okay. Is it good? Uh, Okay, I think I didn't notice. Sorry for it because my laptop automatically switches on the night shift, and I think probably that is why you are seeing the redness in the screen. But sorry for it. So sorry for it. Okay, but yeah, so you got the point, right? That this is how you can use state and props in React, and we can make beautiful and manageable actually front end or dashboards and anything in React, and it basically is our whole thing. It basically is our operation and stuff. So yeah, again one more quick thing. Then for example, this user is something that also we can there is something that there is also that I want to change. So let's make it something like I want to make it I want to make it like as a count, and then what I want to do is name of that thing. And in this case, in one case I want it to be users, in another case I want it to be let's say the events, in another case I want to make it let's say users, events, and orders, and then let's say backlogs and stuff. Okay, now I am reusing this component. How I am going to reuse it? I am going to make another variable, the title, and then I am just simply going to props dot name, and then I am just going to replace this thing with the title. And this user thing does not make much sense now, so let's change it to count, and then let's wrap it to this. And now you will be amazed that in our case, let it refresh, and you will see that it is working. Okay, okay, yeah. Now we are passing it on counting, so that is why it was not working, but now it will work like a charm. So now you see that we have this one component and we are actually reusing it in multiple places. So that is the whole point of actually using these components and dividing our front end in pieces that can be reused together for multiple purposes and stuff. No, if not multiple purposes, at least general purposes like this, at least where we have this multiple tiles which has literally the same property. It will just show the count, and it will basically show some title and stuff, right? So yeah, I think we are about to pass the time, and I think I basically covered the basics of that. Though we did not talk about, although we could not talk about the routing thing and stuff, because even if you see, we are on the single on the base URL. But but in cases you have home, you have cases like you have a profile thing, you have a cases like settings page and stuff like that. So that is not possible, that is not there in React by default. So for that we use something called React Router. It is another plugin on top of React that enables us to implement those routing things and stuff. So you can check this out, React Router. Though I think there are a few. I like this one the most. I have been using this since I have been using working with React and stuff. So it is pretty handy, and you will see the documentation of it as well, that you define something, you define route. So what will change in this case? In our React, our index.js file will change, and here inside of that direct component we will pass this route component, and then in that route component we will pass certain paths. Like if the path is slash, the by default the default like the default endpoint, then it has to render this component. If the path is something like profile, then it has to render some other component and stuff like that. And that is useful, like and then there's then it basically enables it enables us another option of actually, again dividing our whole React application in multiple parts by using templates. For example, if we see, then this navbar is actually something that will be used in most of the places. This sidebar is something that can be used in multiple places. I don't know what we call. I forget the technical name for it, but let's call it the, route menu and stuff like that. So probably we might be using it in multiple places, right? So what we can define is we can actually define one theme for it, that this is one navbar component that we will use in this in a theme. We can altogether define this whole sidebar in a component, and we can say that, we'll use that component in our theme. Likewise for this, router menu and stuff, and then this will be the whole body. So again, based on this route, we will be changing this. We'll be changing only this part. So whenever a user clicks on the dashboard, we change this thing and we change it to dashboard. And also the route also changes. Whenever we click on customers, the route changes to customers, and then the whole part remains same, but only this part actually changes, right? And if you see, now all of the modern apps are like that, right? Like they don't update the whole page, rather they only update part of the page that has to be updated also along with the route, so that when you visit the route next time, you will get to the same page again, right? So for example, in our case, if we implement it, then if I refresh the page, then, I will lose a track of where I was earlier. And routes are one way of, one way of managing it as well. Like with routes, we know we in which place we were in the last time. So yeah, folks, this is what I had for today's session. What I wanted to discuss with you guys: a little bit of React, little bit of JavaScript, little bit of JavaScript, JSX, JavaScript, and XML, about the components, about the props, about the states, about the life cycle, about how we can handle the events, about the conditional rendering, and all other things. So I think it will be it was useful for you guys. If you have any question, feel free to ping me on anywhere, on LinkedIn or anywhere. You probably can get my number from these folks, and you can pitch me. You can ping me if you have any doubt. And yeah, but I will suggest you, you first Google the search, and you first Google the error, and then even if it does not solve your issue, then you come to me. Because in this development journey, debugging and, fixing errors are like very good, are one critical part. If you become good at it, then literally you can ace in developing, becoming a, very good engineer, very good software engineer, and you can advance your career. So yeah, folks, I would like to conclude my session. This is what I had. I hope you guys probably learned something from it, and it was useful for you. If it was not, then probably, share this feedbacks with this folks, Aditya or something. I think they will tell me the feedbacks, and I will improve on it accordingly as well. So yeah, thank you. This is all I had for
Thank,
today.
okay, thanks a lot, sir, for bringing this insightful session today. I'm sure we have learned that the audience is also got a lot of insights on web development. Today, you basically talked about React, so I'm sure people are uh, rising step by step each day by starting from HTML itself and then CSS, JavaScript, and now React. So that was pretty helpful for me as well as the audience. Thanks a lot. We are looking for the session tomorrow, which would be
Yeah,
around 6 p.m. evening.
yeah, sure. Okay, guys.
Okay.
It was nice
Thanks a
having
lot.
you. Yeah, see you tomorrow.
Okay.